Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out to a wonderful event on a dark and stormy night. Oh my gosh. You are the true believers. Today we're here celebrating the release of The Gathering Dark. Gathering Dark. I almost dropped my notes. I have a horrible short-term memory, so I have my notes hidden behind the book. We have three wonderful authors tonight. First one I'm going to mention is Tori Bovalino, not only a contributing author, but also the editor of The Gathering Dark. She is also the author of The Devil Makes Three, and she was the associate editor for Profane Journal and the Shanghai Literary Magazine, and read for Typehouse Magazine. Also contributing author of The Gathering Dark is Alex Brown, a YA horror writer who loves rooting for the final girl. That's fun. She has also been the showrunner assistant on Supernatural and the upcoming Resident Evil and Grendel adaptations for Netflix. Her YA comedy horror debut, Damned If You Do, will be published in fall of 2023 by Page Street Kids. And of course, joining us in conversation, we have Gina Chen, who has been a long-time customer here at the store and just celebrated the release of her own novel, Violet Made of Thorns, which we had her release debut here. I'm going to go ahead and bring these three authors out. Let's give them a round of applause.
I was slid over.
I was explaining to them that this is not normal. This is the first rain we've had since the start of summer. Tori.
Hello. Hi. Ready?
And this is like the middle or towards the end of your tour.
It's the middle. I have like a little break. So I'm going to Pennsylvania for a couple days. And I have one more thing in New York. Oh, yes.
I think, yes.
Microphone time.
Online people can hear us.
Right.
Yes. I think we also, this does not reach that far.
We're like backup singers. We could lean in. Give you like the
we have the same
solo.
mic. Yeah. So I guess we will just get right into it first. So for this lovely folk horror anthology, what drew you guys both to folk horror, and what are your favorite things about this genre?
Ooh, you should go first.
It was her idea, so.
Okay. So, for me personally, when I was growing up, I was very into kind of like local scary stories and things like that. So I grew up on Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and those kinds of collections. And then I was that like kind of weird kid who would sit like in the dark at the middle of the night and Google like local horror stories, ghosts near me. So I kind of knew like every haunt in my small town. So when I grew up and then started writing horror, I was kind of interested in doing a collection in which, we all picked something that was near and dear to our hearts and told it from a different perspective. So that was kind of my inspiration for the collection itself. Yeah.
Shift this guy. Hello. For me, when I heard the pitch for it, I got really excited because I love abandoned places and like liminal spaces and that kind of thing. And I liked horror as a kid. Like I read Scary Stories in the Dark as well. We were joking earlier that was like, like one of our like book fathers is like Scary Stories. But I kind of got a little scared of horror as I got like older and have like only recently started getting back into it. But I love the idea of just like places that we no longer go to that used to be like filled with people and like filled with their stories and filled with things that we don't even know about anymore, and kind of like what does that look like when you put new people into a space that still kind of has like that history and energy to it, even if they don't quite know like what it is. I think that's where folk horror is interesting to me. Kind of like with folklore, you're trying to find an answer or explain something, or kind of like give a name or like an image to something that doesn't make sense. And that feels very relatable in these uncertain times.
Of hurricanes.
Of hurricanes.
I think the weather is it's quite atmospheric for your entrance. You know, it's a little unfortunate, but I think it fits the mood. It is welcoming the spooky season, I suppose. We just had a heat wave, so it's better than the really muggy stuff we had before. No, I think it's really funny that I've been to a few events this month. You've probably seen me 5 times if you've come here. That everyone talks about the things they did as a child and how it manifests in the stuff they write as an adult. Myself and Adeline, we talked about Neopets, but both of you.
Neopets.
Was that a formative experience
Oh, yeah.
for both of you as well? It was quite creepy as well, actually. I think that you could probably write folk horror about Neopets. Yeah, actually.
I feel like just the fact that they're all kind of there and abandoned in an online space.
Right?
It's a very good.
It's liminal. It is liminal. Yes.
Exactly.
And they've been hungry for a very long time. I apologize. I'm sorry, Neopets, if you're out there watching. I have not fed you for 15 years.
No, it's really. I showed a friend a GIF of Mirka chase, and they're like, "Oh my god, what is that?" So yeah, it's actually quite creepy if you did not grow up with it. I think. Yeah. No, that's really funny. So you both actually have stories in this anthology. Tori edited the anthology as well. But tell us about your respective stories, either a tiny pitch or the opening scene or some inspiration behind the story. They are short stories, so sometimes you can't really describe them the same way as a novel.
You go.
Okay, she has thrown me to the wolves. So the nicest wolves I've ever met. So mine is called Truth or Dare, and it relies heavily on the game of Truth or Dare. But it is about 2 people who go into some tunnels that mysteriously appear whenever a choice needs to be made. And I modeled them off of the rumored North End tunnels in Boston, because those always seemed fascinating to me. And tunnels are creepy. I grew up in a seaside town, so I've spent a lot of time in non-haunted tunnels, but they always feel a little haunted, no matter what.
Yeah, Alex was like Boston tunnels, and I was like, yes, do it. So mine is called Love by All Save One, and so when I was in middle school in Beaver County, Pennsylvania, we did this every year. The middle school did this play about a local headless ghost, which makes literally no sense. And by my year, it had evolved and it was now a musical. Yeah. So I played the ghost, the person, and the head. So that was fun. But so it was actually based on this true local legend thing that happened in the 1800s of this woman who was murdered, and they never found her head. And they found her body eventually. But so it was just really depressing, really. And I don't know why we made it into a musical, to be honest. But but yeah, so this kind of lived in my brain for years and years and years. And then when I was thinking of what I would do, that was kind of the first thing that I decided, I want to revisit this. So it's not necessarily about that ghost. It's kind of, the ghost is its own element, and then it's about a girl going through, kind of a home invasion situation. Yeah.
Does anyone already have questions? Because I have follow-up questions to both of these explanations already. I want to know about the tunnels. I also want to know more about this musical ghost. That is, wait, where did this ghost where did it begin? It's a local.
Yeah, so it's the Pennsylvania Ohio line. So the whole thing is, sorry if this is boring, I promise.
No, I want to know.
So she was a pioneer or something, and yeah, her parents went to buy chickens from Pittsburgh, so she was home alone for 2 days. It just gets weirder and weirder.
I want to know.
But so somebody came in and beheaded her and then buried her body under the floorboards. And her parents came home and they were like, "Oh no, where is she?" And then they found her, but not her head. And then they buried her, and the gravestone actually says "Love by All Save One," which is that's why the story's called.
Is it real? Is it you can go there?
Oh yeah. This is real.
Okay.
Well, yes. The rest, this is where it stops being real, because then they say that she found a pig head and put it on top of her body, like the ghost. Oh. So it's a pig-headed ghost, and then a floating head that's also a ghost.
Somewhere else.
Did you put on a pig head for...
Yes.
Okay, cool. I did. You have photos of this?
Yeah. Somewhere. I've got a video.
Oh my. Have you ever shared this online?
No.
You should. I think it's for the promotion of this anthology.
Do it for the book.
I think when you're 13, you think you're a very good performer. And then when you're not 13 anymore, you look back and you're like, wait a second, we're going to burn this. So yeah,
And look, it can't go worse than whatever happened, at the Venice Film Festival.
I know. Right? This is not the press junction for Don't Worry, Darling. So it's fine.
Yeah, and I also want to know more about the tunnels because I'm not from the East Coast, so I would like to know more about the Boston tunnels.
Yeah.
If we don't have tunnels here, that would be, I feel like do we have? Yeah, we don't really have.
I don't think I've seen tunnels
since
moving out here. Yeah, so it's like maybe they exist, maybe they don't, depending on who you ask. And when I was doing research on it, it looked like people always had they're like, oh, my cousin Frank says you can go in his Uncle George's basement and the tunnel, that's an entrance to the tunnels. So it seems kind of like a very local, fun homegrown thing. And I lived in Salem for a couple of years, so I've always kind of had Massachusetts in my heart, even if it has not had me in it, but it's fine. No, I do. I love you, Massachusetts. But yeah, so I was thinking about them because nobody really knows if they exist. And I figured that would be kind of a good jumping off point for a story because they do kind of seem to have this sort of mysteriousness about them. And I liked the idea more so that maybe you don't have to do a ritual or anything for them to appear. They kind of just know when to appear to you. So the folklore in my short story is that originally 2 people went into the tunnels one day and only one came out. And that ever since then, it's kind of been a thing. You go in there with another person and only one of you makes it out. And what happens to that other person, we don't know. But you can draw your own conclusion from the story. See?
Oh, wait. Is it legal to explore the tunnels there? You just have to kind of...
I don't think you're supposed to go in. If you do go into your friend Frank's Uncle George's basement, I don't think you're supposed to go into the actual tunnels.
Wait, you can
they're there.
So you can just go to the tunnels if they happen to connect to the basement?
Maybe. I don't know. It seemed so the way it seemed online is everyone kind of anecdotally had a friend of a friend who knew it. So I don't think it's real. But if it is real, probably don't go in. I don't think it's yeah.
Frank's gonna be get out of
don't go in. Don't go in the tunnel.
At what point does the property line start? From the tunnel, or
I don't know.
Underground to go.
Right, or if you cross into someone else's part of the tunnel, is it fine then? I don't know.
I actually just remembered that UCSD actually does have tunnels. You're definitely not supposed to go in them, but people do splunk there. I think that's where they keep all the you can get hit by hot steam there, so I think that's where all the the AC stuff probably travels. But yes, that's if you're looking for a West Coast liminal space, have you explored it? Ooh. Oh, everyone loves
that's cool.
See, it's always
stories.
friends.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. For the people online, the Grossmont Shopping Center has tunnels. If you know a guy, he can take you down there.
We're not legally endorsing this.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's possible.
Yeah.
Totally fine.
I think we already answered the next question. So the nature of myths means that the characters in these stories have a lot of prior knowledge about these supernatural events and entities, and they are not the first people to have encountered them. So why did you choose these narrators and decide to frame the myths in these ways? And do you think about the other people in the past who could have encountered the same ghosts or the same tunnels and what their stories would have been?
Do you want me to go first? Okay, yes. Just because I was talking about it 2 seconds ago. So with my narrator, she is the one who has a choice to make. So the other person she goes into the tunnel with asks her a question, and they're kind of in a very toxic, will they, won't they sort of thing. So she basically has to figure out, is she gonna stay with this guy and give him a chance even though he's kind of garbage, or will she, choose herself and leave him in the tunnel. And yeah, I framed it that way mostly because I was this is fun. She has to decide, and it felt like a very clear arc, for a short story, something that I could explore in a small amount of words. But I did think a lot about the other people that have used it, because obviously it's a urban legend in that world for a reason. And the myth is pretty well known that like you go in there with another person and only one person makes it out. So I did kind of leave a part where like people who have been in there in the past have like carved their initials like into the wall of the tunnel and everything like that. So she does kind of see like proof of other people who've been there, even if she's never met anyone herself.
Yeah. I'm taking you back to middle school. I'm sorry. So there were people in my hometown that had declared that they'd seen this ghost, including the director of the middle school play, which is possibly why he wrote it. Sorry. But so interestingly, one of my friends growing up lived on the land where all of this was said to take place. So, yeah. So that was kind of the inspiration from the actual house, not her house, but kind of the fact that there is now a house on that land that we did spend a lot of time talking about in high school. You know, hanging out and being like, oh, do you think there's a ghost here still? Because it gets very, very dark around those areas, and you're just kind of like, what if we go find it? So yeah, so around my area, there's still like all of these things related to this particular ghost. So kind of building off of that same local knowledge was really helpful, and kind of like everyone knows about this ghost in the story, just as everyone knows about the ghost in my hometown. Yeah. So that was helpful.
Do they still like throughout the generation, like now?
I think there's actually like a Halloween trolley situation where people go ghost hunting for her. Like I think that's like still legitimately a thing. I haven't lived there for a while, but it was going when I was in high school, and yeah, I'm pretty sure they still do the play too, which is
I love that.
a little bit weird.
Does it? Wait, okay. I'm
It's okay.
seriously
This is a weird one.
I'm seriously curious about this play. Like, so, like, if you said it transformed into a musical, so like, who is adding things to it?
The ghost.
The students and the choir director, and also the person who is directing it for like 40 years. But like there's I'm so sorry. There's like ghost dancers, which are like people that like creep up the aisles. I have like the framed script on my wall from like when I was like 13. So maybe I'll do like snippets and post them on the internet. So everybody tune in for that. Yeah.
No, but I think that's amazing though, because it's like, you know, you have this like local folklore. It now exists in your published anthology. It exists as a musical. It existed before that as many renditions of a play. So everyone's writing stories about this one, you know, piece of local folklore.
Just to be clear, it's not a good musical. Like, it's not good.
It's okay. It's creative expression.
Yeah.
It comes from the heart. I mean, I don't think anyone would write a musical if they were not passionate about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? Basically. You have to go all in on a musical.
I did.
See, yeah, and you had a great time as a 13-year-old in that pig's head.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I had a great time wearing a wedding dress and a pig's head.
And without that, we wouldn't have, you know, the Gathering Dark possibly.
Yeah.
So how do you, as an author, like to get under a reader's skin? How do you get to the heart of how something is scary or creepy or suspenseful, especially the kind of horror that lingers and becomes myth? And how do you like to translate that to the page?
Do you want me to? Yeah. So I'm not like a method writer because I don't think that exists, but I don't think people can get scared if I'm not scared. So I try to freak myself out as much as physically possible by like writing in like very dark rooms with like one song looping like in a hypnotic way.
And you don't have to wear glasses?
No. Nope. So yeah, so I just kind of make myself as freaked out as possible and hope that translates. And then also, if I can think of something that I genuinely wouldn't want to happen to me, hopefully the readers as well would not like that to happen to them. So I think that like, even though we're talking about a ghost for this particular story, the horror in it is not the ghost itself. It's kind of the real people. And I think that was always scarier to me than the supernatural, is the things that you can physically happen to you. So that was kind of a jumping off point. And I think in all of my books, that's kind of the thing. Like the supernatural is scary, but people are just as scary.
Man is the real monster here.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, I think it's like existential you know, like it for me, for the story I wrote here in particular, like it's very like I wanted the implication of what happened to stick with someone rather than being like, and now he's dead. But it's like, is he dead or is he not dead? We don't really know like what happened to this guy, or is he like, you know, held hostage by a scary monster in the tunnels? We don't really know. And yeah, kind of like Tori, like I like to think of things that I wouldn't want to happen to me, or just things in real life that's like, you know, I want whoever's reading it to be like, oh no, if I was in that situation, like, what would I do? Like, do I agree with this choice or do I like not agree? And I talked a little bit about a short story called The Lady or the Tiger when we did our virtual event for this, but like, we had to read that when I was young for school. I don't know why, but basically at the end, a guy opens a door and you don't know if there's going to be the woman he loves or like a tiger there to eat him. And that's kind of always stuck with me, because like some days I'm like, oh, it was totally the lady, he's fine. And then other days I'm like, but it's the tiger though, like he's dead. So I kind of wanted to do one of those things too. And I feel like that helps the horror be unsettling when you don't concretely know what's happening. You just kind of have to like guess at it. And it could change depending on how you feel that day.
You don't have to explain what the characters decide in your stories, but would you make the same decision as your main character of your stories?
Absolutely.
I actually, upon reflection, I feel like my character is quite passive, and I don't usually do that, but I think that like she is the vessel through which we view everything else happening, so I don't necessarily think she's making a lot of decisions. Yeah, I'm possibly rethinking what editorial notes I give myself in this published story. So yeah, I think I would make all the decisions, because really it's just like a paralysis of fear for a lot of it.
You would
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, other than like running away, but yeah.
So is there anything that like gets under your skins in particular, your respective skins?
Our collective skin. What gets under our skin?
Birds. I feel like I've said this in like multiple. Mysterious Galaxy knows I'm afraid of birds.
Oh no.
Yeah, birds freak me out.
Yeah, seagulls here. You like.
Yeah. She texted me earlier and was like, "The seagulls have started," and I was like, "What does that mean?"
I don't think they have those in like East Coast of England as much, do they? Yeah.
Well, so it's weird because like in England, everything is either central or coastal. Like I feel like there's very little kind of.
What's the worst bird?
Ooh. Oh, you know, pigeons.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Because they just kind of go up to you, right? And they don't care.
They're in your business. Like pigeons don't care. Yeah. So I really have been like surrounded by too many pigeons at once. It's like, not dealing with that. So yeah, that's my. Don't like it.
Mine is probably like whatever lives in the ocean that we haven't found yet. It just is probably terrifying, but also probably really cool. But just those kind of things, or like what's in the far corners of the rainforest, whatever's left of the rainforest, you know, like what is in there? I feel like there's, and this is my like, I love cryptids thing coming out, but like, you know, we don't know everything that exists in this world. So I feel like it's those unknown things that haunt me.
I always like to turn this back on whoever's asking it. What are you afraid of?
Oh my God, what am I afraid of? No,
it's like nothing.
Fearless,
you know,
like Taylor Swift.
I feel like I would be afraid of like getting lost in my own thoughts or something, like being trapped by my own like spiral of. I feel like anything like I could imagine would be worse than, I don't know, because it's like you know, it's like when you allow yourself to think like really, really terrible things, and you're like, oh, I could think of something even worse than this, and you're like, oh, don't go down that path, right? But like I feel like as authors, like when we start imagining stuff, it's like, oh, you start imagining like weird stuff, and like, oh, but but maybe that's also because I've been drafting. So I'm like,
no, I totally get you. Like, do you ever do the like death versus infinity spiral, which is like if you're laying awake in bed at night and you imagine like dying and what that feels like?
Yeah, or it's kind of similar. I mean, I don't do that when I'm like but like sometimes I get on these like really morbid like Wikipedia.
Yes,
right. Like that's the same thing.
Are you on morbid Wikipedia?
I'm not on morbid Wikipedia. I do have those thoughts sometimes, though. Back to existentialism, where I'm like, why am I here? What is is life? Will I ever make an impact? Like, am I here to make an impact? I don't really know what I'm doing. Why do any of us exist?
But kind of like, it's like when you think about how many billions of people have lived and like just like the weird stuff that has happened, and like all of a sudden things could just, the queen could drop dead, you know. So so you never know what's going to happen, and I think that's kind of terrifying. Do you like to write about these things that terrify you? I guess I do.
Maybe.
Do you write about birds? Will you?
Well, birds are off limits. No, I think that I do write about the stuff that scares me, but on a conceptual level, like not like that's never the actual horror in it, but that's the underlying current behind the horror in it. Because I'm like, obviously, I'm afraid of more than birds, but like, I think that if I were to write a story about birds, that would be too camp almost, you know. So I prefer to tackle kind of the existential things, and like the undercurrent, like. Realistically, like in the story that I wrote here, like they're afraid of death, but they're afraid of harm and those kinds of things, and the eternity of never ceasing to exist, and what that means. And then, like in my other books, I feel like that's kind of like an undercurrent is fearing all of these, like fearing knowledge, fearing knowing everything, but also not knowing kind of what happens next. So yeah, I think that kind of I've forgotten where I was going with this, but yes,
that's an excellent answer. But I am going to think about birds if I when I read your stories, I'll be like,
it's there.
Oh, and then I have some questions about, the actual process of like creating this anthology. Tori, what was it like being both editor and contributor? You gave us some edit notes earlier in this conversation.
For myself, to be fair. It was fun. It was interesting because so I need to update my bio realistically. So I have edited for magazines and things, and now I do work for a publisher, so I do kind of more with that too. So I have had experience with it, but it's interesting. I wouldn't say, because Alex is also editing an anthology. But it's not necessarily like you're just, tearing people loose. You're almost commissioning things in a way. Would you kind of agree with that statement? Yeah. So there's like a kind of basic idea that you want people to follow. So I think it was interesting, first of all, picking people, and then, going through the processes of, it was genuinely terrifying to, reach out to people that you know and that you don't know and go through agents and things like that. I found that really scary. And then the actual process of editing was not actually that bad because I'd worked with my editor before. So we would have these like long 3-hour meetings over Zoom where we'd talk through every story and kind of go point by point and say what we each thought. And I thought that was very interesting to kind of see how often our thoughts aligned. And good to see that as a reader, I was kind of picking up the same things that she was. It was like I have edited books before, of course, because I've, had to go through that. And I always know that if I look at an edit letter and there's something that my editor is saying, then I need to find the root cause of what that thought is. And I know how to do that for my own work, but it's always interesting to see how other people do that. So it was like this miraculous shift as we were giving people these notes. And then they were coming back with things that I was like, I did not expect that to change that way, but that fixes everything. And it was just like, I don't know, it is kind of magic, just the shifting of editorial processes. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting, but yeah, just being on the other side was very different and scary because what if you give bad advice? But in the end, I think it all worked out, and it was nice having someone else there to check my feelings against.
Yeah, I've definitely understood that from the author side. Just like they give you notes, and I'm like, oh, I understand what they're trying to say, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it doesn't matter if it's like, oh no. But especially once you've lived in the story long enough, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. You probably thought about that specific paragraph a billion times.
Yes.
Yeah. Were the authors given like any specific prompts or themes?
So I basically dropped in like a Wikipedia definition. No, I dropped in like, this is folk horror. These are some properties that are folk horror that are popular right now. So like we would talk about the devil all the time and her body and other parties, and of course scary stories to tell in the dark and things like that. But I was really interested in getting to kind of in like new spaces with folk horror, because I think there's a lot of focus on cults and nature, which we all tried to keep as much as possible. But there's this essence of like lost Americana that's being investigated kind of within folk horror, especially like a lot of the stories in this anthology are queer. And we have writers from different backgrounds and things like that. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was not kind of keeping into this narrow, usually white, usually European version of folk horror, and kind of seeing if we could branch out and push those boundaries a little bit. But yeah, it was basically like spooky stories and liminality. Let's figure out what's going on.
When you got the prompt, Alex, did you like already have a story in mind, or when you got the list of folk horror media, you're like, oh, I know what fits in with these?
Yeah. So I think like my story changed slightly from what I like originally pitched. But I sent Tori like five different ideas, because I was like, I don't know, it could be like any of these things. One was about like a Furby that like turned evil or something, like there is a lot of like random stuff in there.
There's kind of a Furby that turns evil story in here. I mean, it's a doll, but yes.
Yeah.
I don't remember evil Furby pitch, to be honest.
No, I don't think it was a Furby, but it was kind of like doll related. Furbies are another thing that haunt me. It's the eyes. Okay, off topic real quick. One time when I was little, my babysitter spilled Sprite on the Furby that we had, and then it started like making Furby sounds. Yeah, and then we took the batteries out, and it was still going. So I think about that a lot. But yeah, it's terrifying. I don't know where it is now, but I hope you don't hear this, Furby, that we abandoned.
I don't know where you are now. It's very ominous. Like I would assume the trash, but maybe not.
But I don't know. We may never know. But yeah, so I think once Tori had been like, oh, the tunnels sound really cool. I kind of knew-ish what I wanted to do, and then it kind of like came to me one day that like this is kind of how I wanted to narrow the story and what I wanted to write about. So yeah, this one weirdly came together very easily. Usually I have no idea what I'm doing and I just hope it works. So the vibe.
And where did the title The Gathering Dark come from?
Genuinely no idea. I think it was like
That's fair.
I literally was just putting together a pitch letter, and I think that was kind of the first thing I wrote down, and I expected someone to change it at some point, and then no one ever did. I'm not mad about it. It's a great title.
I love it, yeah.
But like I didn't actually expect it to be the title, because it was also The Gathering Dark is like the first title for Shadow and Bone. So before they changed it to Shadow and Bone. So I kind of internally expected it to change, so because I thought that was too big of a property to kind of tread on the toes
I
of.
feel like it's gotten like so big that it's eclipsed that, right? Maybe
we'll see.
No, as in like no one even remembers the original title.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean. Yes, I think it was bigger in like Australia or something. I don't remember. It might have been like the original UK or Australia title. It might not have been the US one, but yeah. So that was kind of like there. And then, I think I just wrote it down and it stuck.
Well, it was a great title then. It's a great title now.
No, thanks. The glamour of writing an anthology.
And Alex, you are editing a different horror anthology that's coming out next year, Night of the Living Queers. How is that going?
Yeah, that's a better title.
Yeah. That I was like, this would be a fun title. I threw it out as a joke, genuinely, and then it stuck. But yeah, no, that's going really well. I'm co-editing it with another writing friend named Shelly Page. If you're here, hello, Shelly. And yeah, I think it's going really well. All the stories are really, really cool. I kind of had the same like crisis that Tori did, though. Like when we were like giving people notes, like we have like really awesome authors in there, and I was like, who am I to like give you a note? But everyone. All the stories are so cool, and I'm really excited to see all the revised versions. And I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Hey.
Shelly!
I still have more questions, but is there any good online questions that you want to throw out? Yeah.
fantasy / series.
Do you have thoughts? All right. So the best thing I think that you can do as kind of an aspiring author is to get other people to read your work who don't know you, but then also don't get too many people to read your work. I feel like there's definitely a sweet spot until you hit the too many cooks in the kitchen, because especially when you're starting out and you're trying to figure out what feedback works best for you, it's kind of necessary to get feedback that you're automatically like, no. And then kind of figure out what we were saying earlier with all feedback has a root problem. Getting more feedback helps you figure out the root problem, and then it gets to the point where you can't really write in an echo chamber, but you get less and less feedback and you're able to find the problems easier yourself. But yeah, I think especially with kind of dark fantasy, because with dark works and horror, they can be very polarizing, and some people don't kind of have the same idea of what's good and what's not. If it scares you, then it should scare other people, but there will be people that will say, oh, either that's too far or that's not far enough, and you kind of have to find that line for yourself. Yeah?
Yeah. I would also say, like, just write the thing that feels the most like you. Like, what is the book that only you can write? And stick with that, because I think things started picking up for me in publishing when I finally figured that out and wrote the things I thought were really cool. And I wrote less like what, I thought like would sell, quote unquote. And yes, make lots of writing friends, share your work with people, also read other people's works, because critiquing is a really good way to learn craft.
We spent all day talking about how we can't read.
It's true. Here I am being like, read, and I'm like, what's a book? It's fine. It's cool. But yes, critiquing other people's work is awesome. And with feedback too, like, it's okay sometimes to be like, I don't agree with that point, and not incorporate it, or it's okay to ask follow-up if you kind of need more help. It's all about figuring out like what helps the story you want to tell become its best self. Yeah, so just keep learning and growing, which is terrible advice, I feel like, but here we are.
No, I think to add to that, because I think you brought up something good with like figure out your process early on, and I think we can all attest to this, is that when you have the time before you kind of are locked into contracts and have deadlines and things like that, before you're in that position, it really helps to figure out what works best for you, so that when you are in that position later and you're like, okay, well, I have 3 months to write a book, you know what you're doing and exactly who to go to for feedback. And like, you have people you trust, you can say, I need this turned around in 6 weeks. Can you help me? Yeah. So,
And I think what also a lot of people don't understand is that feedback and criticism is like a skill. Everyone's personal reactions to media is like valid, but the actual analysis of it, it takes like a critical eye to really do good analysis of work. Oh, and I think something interesting about both of you is that you've both written in multiple formats, like short stories, short stories and novels, and you've also edited like multiple things, and then you're also showrunner's assistant.
Showrunner's assistant.
Yes. So, what are some interesting ways that horror stories vary across the mediums, in the way they're created, or in the way the audience receives them? So audio drama too, right? Mm-hmm. So that's really cool. That's like a good widespread here.
Yeah,
got a mix.
How do you spook people in the ears?
Yeah, in the ears. How do you spook people in the ears? That's a good question. So yeah, for us, I mean, it's what's scary or like what will give you chills, frights, whatever. Obviously is different from medium to medium, right? So like with TV and movies, you can use like jump scares that may or may not be effective. But with audio drama, the way we did it on the bridge is we kind of just with books left it up to people's imagination a lot of the time. So like my podcast is basically about people who live on this like fictional bridge that spans the Atlantic Ocean, and then they talk a lot about like folklore of like abandoned places and stuff. So we kind of would just like describe sort of like alleged monsters or like weird events where people went missing all of a sudden altogether. and things like that, and kind of just like let people fill in the blanks there. And I think that's sort of what I've also taken into like writing books, because like you can paint a picture, but like whatever someone imagines is going to be way scarier than whatever you actually write. So I feel like it's about doing kind of like broad strokes and giving someone like the canvas on which to like paint their nightmare, basically.
I think I'm slightly the opposite there, in that I'm going to give you the gore. Like, I'm going to tell you exactly what it is, and then you're going to picture it, and that's bad.
That's the
not
Wikipedia morbidity.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it is. I'm on Wikipedia looking up gore. Not really. That's not a good statement for me to make.
I think I mentioned this during my debut event. It's like, do you know there's a Wikipedia page for lampshades made out of human skin?
I know what I'm doing later.
I always think about that, because why is there enough of that to
Yeah.
have a page? Yeah, page. So that
There's one for like, we will get off of this topic, I promise, but there's one for like amusement park deaths, which always haunts me.
yeah.
Like, alert Aiden Polydorus, because we have haunted amusement park in here. Yeah, it's good. But yeah, it's just interesting to kind of see how the worst things possible could happen kind of in the perceivably best and most entertaining places on earth, and I think that disparity is also really interesting. But to answer the OG question, I think consuming a lot of the media in which you want to write in or produce in is also really helpful. So listening to podcasts, or when I was putting together this, reading a lot of short stories and reading a lot of anthologies was helpful to kind of figure out, especially things with the order, like how do we want the book to process. So I think that was helpful. And when I'm writing or editing, especially when I'm editing, I'll sometimes, I know I was just saying I don't read, I promise I do. I think with editing, it helps if I like work on 1 or 2 chapters of my own thing, and then I immediately read 2 or 3 chapters of something else. So then my brain is constantly refilling that there are other words for I, or it, or the. There's not another word for the. Yeah.
What's another word for I think everyone loves
Me. I picked the worst
I
example.
thought it was I. I thought you were gonna be like, his silver orbs. So I was like, I think everyone would love another word for that.
It's the orbs again.
Yes. So if cost or accessibility weren't an issue, what would be your dream medium to work in? Or is this already your dream medium?
I always wanted to write books. Like I don't think that we could do any more here. I'm just gonna, like, it would be lovely to not have, I don't even know, because I like my day job too. I was gonna say it'd be nice to not have a day job, but if my boss is watching, I like my day job. No, it would be great to kind of find balance in which I could write books and do all the things that I need to do without like spirals occurring. But so I think kind of getting to a spot where that's possible would be the goal. But yeah, I'm staying in books unless someone wants to offer me a movie deal, in which case, yeah.
Yes, I will gladly take a movie deal or $1 million, whichever one comes first. But yeah, no, for me, I love books and I love writing books, but I'd also love to get back into podcasting. But it takes a very long time, and sadly, you can't make a lot of money doing it. But if I could make a lot of money doing it, I would make so many horror podcasts because they're so fun. And I will get back to mine one day. If anyone who listens to The Bridge is watching, I'm so sorry. We've been on hiatus for like 5 years.
No.
It's rough out there.
Did it finish? Did you leave it on a cliff?
No, we're 2 episodes away from the season 1 finale. My bad, y'all.
I was like, whoops.
I feel like Monkey's Paw style. Like, what would you trade for? Sorry, I'm taking over.
Go on.
What would you trade to be able to like achieve that goal of writing in any format or writing anything you want?
Who has read Siren Queen by Nevo? Because that's the question. But for Hollywood, like, what would you trade for Hollywood? I would not trade some of the things they trade there.
Read that.
Yeah. Okay.
One day.
Yeah. What would you trade to read?
time, valuable time and energy. No, yeah, I don't know.
Sleep.
I feel like we already are doing these trades.
That's the problem. Is we're trading all the things we can't physically trade right now.
But I guess on like a moving away from your podcast,
Yes.
what about some other spooky seasonal content that you would recommend to everyone listening now? Maybe also just things that you like to rewatch or reread in autumn. Books, movies, games, anything. Yeah.
I am always up for a rewatch of Penny Dreadful, which we were just talking about in the car. Yeah, definitely up for that. I also like reread the Scorpio races quite a lot.
And you do the November reread?
Yeah, it must be done. But I think you're going to recommend this too. But Direwood by Catherine Yu is coming out. And that is very good and spooky. And it's like 90s vampires with like bug horror. So I highly recommend that for spooky season.
I'm excited for that one.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes, I shall second Direwood. It's going to be awesome. I rewatch Hocus Pocus every year, maybe more than once. Maybe. That's just like the seasonal go-to, and living in Salem was cool because we got to see like some of the places. And I'm excited for the sequel. We'll see how this goes. But yeah, Hocus Pocus. And then usually, you know, in non-pandemic times, I liked to go to like haunted houses and stuff. Like not the ones that are actually haunted by ghosts, but like the ones where people jump out at you. Not because I enjoy being scared, but just because I like to look at like how they've done it. Like I'm that weird person that's like, oh wow, the wallpaper is so realistic, or like that mask is awesome. So it's like the craft of the haunted house is exciting. So those are my favorite seasonal things to do. Also, the pumpkin spice latte is back. So like that's, you know, Starbucks doesn't need my endorsement, but I'm giving it because I love it.
Have y'all heard about pumpkin spice?
Do you like to like give praise to the actors inside the haunted house? You know, clap for them or shake their hand or no?
Yeah, sometimes I mean like it's hard for me to get like jump scared in those places because I know they're coming. But yeah, if they get like the people in my group or like the other strangers you get paired with in a haunted house, sometimes I'm like, that was good, or I'm like, oh yeah. I don't know if that. I hope it doesn't come off as like what's the word? Condescending. I'm really genuinely trying to be supportive of them, but
Get enough recognition.
they don't. Because then if people don't react to them too, then it's kind of sad because they're like, ah, and then someone just walks by and you're like, oh, buddy, like, you did your job, you tried.
Are there more questions?
Let's open it up to the audience.
Oh, right.
If they have
Dear.
any questions.
Yes, actually,
Hello,
sorry.
audience.
You have questions. Ooh. I feel like I just do it with my friends, you know? When you talk about the stuff you like, and you talk about why you like it or why you don't like it. I mean, I never want to be a critic, but you know, like I feel like just doing that kind of flexes that skill. Is it haunted?
Did it, like, fall?
It's haunted.
Oh, no.
There she
It's just slightly dying.
That's okay.
It's like, who's not?
we could really be backup singers now. And just,
Yeah.
like, pass them.
It's true.
Okay. Yes. So I would say, like, if you have like criticisms of things that already exist, we're getting comfortable now. I'll pass it over. If you have criticisms of things that already exist, I think that's a good place to start. But there are a lot of forums where you could start kind of doing things anonymously, not in like a creepy way, but like writing exchanges. So I found a lot of beta readers and critique partners when I was starting out through places like Absolute Right Water Cooler, which I don't know if it exists anymore.
It's very slow. From what I literally tried to open the site and it's very slow. It will not open.
No, I think like the server crashed or something.
Okay.
So it might not exist anymore. I'm old. I'm sorry. And then there was a few critique matchups that are really good to find people through. And you usually go in with the understanding that we'll exchange 3 chapters to start out with, see if we're a good fit. I think it's important to internalize that they can decide not to take your criticism, and that's fine. And you can decide not to take theirs, and that's fine. But it helps to kind of start flexing that muscle, because there will be things that I exchange with people, and I'm like, you know what? Either I don't have time, or this just isn't my style, or I feel like I don't have notes that are appropriate for this type of media or this type of story. And that's fine too. But yeah, I think like starting out in a space like that, or like even on Twitter, they're like CP matchup hashtags. I'm not one of the youths. I am actually, but there's like things like that where you could start matching up with people. I feel like there's this anxiety that goes along with it, and that's totally valid and normal. But kind of the more you do it, the easier it becomes, maybe.
And it is honestly quite difficult to find a good critique partner.
Yeah.
It's not like both of your faults. It's just you really do have to match up with the right personality.
And then like in terms of things that are like existing now, like other like books and TV and like shows and movies and stuff, I think a good thing that I like to do is also just kind of like go online and see like what other people are saying, like either on Twitter, would take that with a grain of salt, but also like there are people who like will publish like critiques of like different shows that are happening right now or books that come out, and like just kind of like that learning through just seeking out information and like reading. I think that's also helped me sort of put things or give like, you know, vocabulary or like put a word to something that I was feeling. Like when I was little, I didn't know Orientalism was a thing. And then like now in my old wizened age, I'm like, ah, yes, Edward Said, like this is what's up. Now every time I watch something, I'm like, look at that Orientalism, look at that over there. That's techno-Orientalism. Wow. So, you know, you can start to realize that like these thoughts you're having aren't like just you, like they're things that are recurring and have been recurring. And there are like other people who have come before who have written many books and many things about them.
Online question. What's your style of writing? Do you guys write every day?
I was going to say I haven't written in a long time, but that's not true. I was writing earlier today. It's hard to go through kind of the seasons of working on a project, I'd say, because sometimes you're in the thick of it and you're like, wow, I'm productive today. And then sometimes it's like every 100 words is like painful. I'm currently in the pain stage, so that's fine.
Horror.
I'm on promo season, so this is not. Yeah, so I would say I write when I feel like it. I used to be one of those people who I would have to write every day, but I don't think that's necessarily sustainable for me personally. And kind of giving myself that space to not be mad at myself when I don't write every day has been really helpful in kind of figuring out something that does work, which is when I can.
Yeah, I have a day job and a life and lots of other things that I like to do. So yeah, it's been, I can't write every day, but I try to do it when I feel like I am mentally able and won't have a breakdown, because sometimes breakdowns happen and it's okay. Not to deter anyone from writing. It's a lot of fun. It's a good time.
Fun breakdowns.
It's fun breakdowns. But yeah, and then in terms of my writing style, I like to describe it as like a commercial, like garbage raccoon, basically. Like it's kind of just like, it's very conversational. Like there's maybe I'll write a nice flowery line here or there, but like it's pretty much just like every narrator I have is like, sit down, I'm going to tell you a story, and usually there's some swears thrown in there. So
I've never heard anyone call their writing style a raccoon.
yeah, it's just kind of like, you know, a little yeah, it's a raccoon kind of digging through the garbage. Like,
have you watched The Birds by Afra already?
Okay, I morally
You
ethically
should.
refuse to,
No.
because like he like covered her in peanut butter.
Oh,
or something,
yeah,
and
that's
said
true.
her
That's
dream
true.
Never acted again.
Oh.
Like that's odd.
what is with directors doing that? Like
What is it with
traumatizing
birds?
people? No.
Should be good to go on your mic again.
Oh,
Hello.
So
Oh.
sorry about that.
Hello.
We're just talking. You were recommending the Babadook, and also wait, let me say,
Who knows? I think it's the Babadook. I think they say like the Babadook,
Babadook?
but that's because they're Australian and I'm not, so it will
I
be the
think-
Babadook.
I say things like a valley girl. I'm sorry. And I just totally forgot what you recommended.
The Autopsy of Jane Doe was probably the spookiest. Yeah, if you haven't seen it. Do we have any last online questions?
I have a lightning round too.
Oh, a lightning round.
If it's lightning,
Sorry, I got really excited.
I wrote it in the car. So
Let's do one more online, and then I'll end with
Okay.
your lightning round.
okay.
Just because I want to know this answer. What's your favorite Neopet?
Oh no.
Okay. I had a Kachik for the longest time. I just want people to know that.
I forget all the ones I abandoned.
Right.
Oh no.
I think I don't remember what it was called, but I think there's like a dolphiny one.
Flotsam, yes.
Yeah, flotsam.
What? It's clever at flotsam and jetsam,
Yes.
which I learned were real words later on.
Oh, they're not just made up for the little
It
for the
means-
Little Mermaid.
It means
Oh.
it means the debris in the water. Yeah.
I'm from a beach and I did not know that. That's a shame. But yes, R.I.P. to my flotsam. You're a real one.
If you guys know about the lab ray, that's pretty horrific. I zapped my pets. I'm sorry. Sometimes they turn into soot, but then they can turn into like whatever stuff. They can turn into weird stuff.
I had like a cat-like situation.
And Aisha,
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know. Like this is revealing too much about me
I am quite curious how you know just so much about Neopets.
because I was on there for a very long time. I was at Adeline's event. I was like, she was talking about Neopets. And I'm like, I'm going to keep quiet. Otherwise, I'm going to reveal too much about myself. But we can go to the lightning round instead.
By the way, the key to success apparently is liking Neopets.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah, I guess.
So general. It dates us so much. I feel.
Everybody go buy them.
Okay, wait. But lightning round, but real lightning round. Like no.
We'll get in.
Well,
we'll get in close.
Okay. Vampires or werewolves?
Vampires.
Skittles or M&Ms?
M&M's.
Sour Skittles or crispy M&Ms.
Wow.
Have you seen crispy M&Ms again? Because I have not. I've been searching for them.
Okay, so I usually live in the UK, and apparently they're blue in the UK, but
Yes.
blue here is like
Yes.
pretzel, right?
Yeah, but they changed it.
But green is crispy M&Ms.
I think they changed it.
Oh, I need to go hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Somebody assist me after this.
Sorry, I interrupted the lightning round because
No,
I'm
it's okay.
personally
That was important.
invested in the
Important
crispy M&Ms.
clarification.
Wait, what makes the M&M's crispy? What is it?
It's like rice.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Oh, I don't
So it's like a crunch bar, but
know.
an M&M.
Yeah.
Nah. I
They-
feel
yeah,
like it's like
crunchy
something
rice and
denser. Yeah, it's like it's not nougat.
Well, we all remember it, so clearly it was very important
Yeah.
to us. Whatever they got in there.
But no, like in the UK, I like buy I think my partner bargains with me with like crispy M&Ms. Like I'm a little like fairy person.
like you're a hamster. You're just
yeah,
like-
it's like I know you have to revise. Here's some crispy M&Ms. I'm like, okay, I'll do my work.
Milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
Milk.
Dark.
Oh,
Only. Oh, did you want to
fight later.
Yeah. Only watching movies forever or only reading books forever?
Oh. Watching movies. I'm sorry, books.
Books. I'm biased, but also I can't watch movies when I'm writing. I have to watch reality TV.
Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Save the monster or slay the monster?
Ooh, it depends on what the monster is.
Kiss the monster.
Be the monster.
Ooh. Sleeping in a bedroom filled with creepy dolls or sleeping in a bedroom with one free roaming tarantula?
Dolls.
I mean, like, is the tarantula poisonous?
No, but it can bite.
Oh, Yeah, I'd rather take the tarantula, I think. I'm not
there you
doing no dolls. No.
That is actually the last one. That was all I can, but I did like that last. I was like, I want to know. And I think that's all the time we have anyway. So just what's coming up next for you, Bo?
Yeah. Oh, so did I just turn it? Okay. No. All right. So my YA horror comedy debut, Damned If You Do, will be out fall 2023, so next year. And then the YA horror anthology, Night of the Living Queers, that I'm co-editing with Shelley Page, will also be out fall 2023. And that Night of the Living Queers features stories solely by queer authors of color. So come check that out.
Oh, and also, where can people find you on social media?
Well, okay. So my social media handles are kind of silly. But my Twitter is at gravity_fail 09, because I made it in 09 and I'm clumsy. And my Instagram is made, MADE, this for Lou, LU, because a friend really wanted me to go on Instagram way back in the day. So I did it for their birthday and
For Lou.
rarely post. For Lou. You're welcome, Lou. But yeah.
I feel like making Twitter in 2009 is like, that's a power move,
Yeah.
you know, like that was before it turned into a trash heap. So I had the paperback of my first book. I'm staring at her now. The paperback of my first book actually also came out on Tuesday. So that's called The Devil Makes Three. So that's fun. You can get her in paper. And then I have a book coming out at some point in 2024 called My Throat an Open Grave.
Great title.
Thanks. It's a Bible verse. Make of that what you will.
Oh my.
Yeah, and I think actually that's the only thing I've got in cooking. Right? Yeah, it's been a very sleepy year.
Oh, and where can
Oh, I'm bad at this. Okay, so on Instagram I'm at Tori Bovalino, and on Twitter I'm at Tori Bov. What's coming next for you? And where can we find you online?
Yeah.
book 2? Everyone's waiting for book 2, and you can find me on online as Actual Gina everywhere, and that's me. That's actually me.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here in store and braving the weather, and for those who are joining online. Don't forget, if you get your own copy of The Gathering Dark, not only will we have signed copies by Alex and Tori, but we also have the lovely book plates that are signed by all 10 authors. We just got them just in time. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, Mysterious.